Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Valentino Megale here. And here we are back to a new series of the RBS Innovation Bites. As you know, I have the pleasure every single month to host a great expert, a subject matter expert, talking about the new frontiers of technologies, how they can be applied in different kind of industry fields, what kind of trends are emerging, and also how this is going to impact your work, potential ideas for business, and also, broadly speaking, society. And after talking about the future of fashion, the future of generative AI used to create videos, for example, the future of femtech the last time, and also the future of finance, this time I have the great pleasure to host a great professional, also a good old friend, to talk about the very particular topic that we probably already experienced somehow, especially when navigating the websites, navigating the social media, sometimes also watching the TV advertisements. I want to talk about the topic of virtual influencers. And today we are going to host Professor Davide Sisto. He's a professor at the University of Turin, covering the course about digital life forms, and he's also a well-renowned thanatologist. There is a particular topic that maybe not is not known to everybody of you, but at the same time is growing, and at the same time it's gaining momentum uh, because technology is really entering in every field of our life. Thanatology is actually the study of digital death. And moving from that, we are going to talk about virtual influencer, which is also the focus of the latest book by Davide Sisto, that is going to be published probably also in English very soon. I'm going to first of all welcome Davide on stage right now. Welcome, Davide. Here we are.
Welcome. Thank you so much, Valentino.
Thank you, Davide. Thank you, Davide. You're absolutely welcome on this digital stage to our RBS alumni. I kindly invite you maybe to add any additional details about what you're doing, your activities, and your work.
But, I have been a philosopher and expert in digital thanatology for about 15 years, and have been training doctors, psychologists, and other professionals. And in recent years, I have been working on virtual influencer in connection with digital death, and is particular research that improves my characteristics.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Davide. Actually, you wrote several books. Many of your books are already translated in English. May I ask you if the virtual influencer is already translated in English or not yet?
In this moment, not yet, but I hope, obviously.
Well, your past books are translated everywhere in the world. I sometimes see your posts, books translated in Japanese, in Finnish, really everywhere around the world. So I definitely invite all of our audience to take a look at Davide Sisto bibliography. And I would like to start with a question. So when I talk about virtual influencers, sometimes in our classes, I cite your activities, your books, and I start quite often from Lil Miquela as an example. Because Lil Miquela is actually an example that you can check. You can go on Instagram, for example, and have a look. So my question is, there's millions of followers. People are really buying stuff from what virtual influencers are suggesting. So my question is, what makes virtual influencers, we can say, authentic, no, to human followers, even if they are synthetic, even if people know, because the new generations, they know they are synthetic, are they able to generate true emotions?
Yes, in my opinion, there are many reasons to consider virtual influencer as authentic. First of all, virtual influencer openly states on their Instagram or TikTok profiles that they are artificial creations. And this is a fundamental starting point for building meaningful relationship with human followers. In fact, authenticity is often the most valued trait we want to find, we seek on the influencer profiles. For example, I think about an important book of Emily Hunt, the influencer industry, that underlines the fundamental role of concept of authenticity for the relationship between influencers and world of work. But, however, most human influencer, while appearing to share their real lives on social media, often we present a sort of fabricated version of reality.
Yeah.
And this determines a sort of disappointment on human followers. Followers feel betrayed or deceived because of this human influencer behavior. For this reason, when virtual influencers openly say, I don't exist, I am artificial, they can avoid this kind of disappointment, and their authenticity lies in their honest acknowledgement, honest admission of their artificial nature. It's as if this admission of not being human eliminates any risk of misunderstanding right away. But secondly, this admission creates a curious paradox. In other words, we perceive them both as both perfect and imperfect at the same time. They are perfect, obviously, because they are artificial creation, and for this reason, they don't age, they are immune to death, and they lack the typically biological flaws of real people. But they are imperfect because they lack biological life. In other words, they don't feel real emotion, they don't suffer, and etc. And for this reason, these failures makes us feel superior to them.
Mm.
And this dialectical tension between perfection and imperfection becomes the starting point for a real emotional connection. In other words, we project our emotions, our imagination, and our desires on these artificial beings that look like us but are different. And when we interact with virtual influencer, we impose on them our expectations, our illusions, and idealizations. And in my opinion, something synthetic still generate real emotion connection because of this particular dialectic between perfection and imperfection.
Hmm. So there is this interesting gap, no, between us, the honest humans, and the virtual ones. And you say that we project, no, our ideas, our desires on top of them, and so they become a little bit like sort of stereotypes, no, stereotypes, or just ideal examples of how we would like to be, on how we would like to experience something. Do you think that these virtual influencers can actually reinforce the stereotypes? They can also in negatively or positively they can also disrupt the social stereotypes. What is their impact?
Mm, it depends on the situation. On one hand, virtual influencer can reinforce social and cultural stereotypes and prejudice. Many of them are designed as young women, typically between 20, 25 years old, with highly sexy bodies.
Yeah,
For example, Emily Pellegrini and Itana Lopez are
yeah,
both designed as sexy young women with perfect bodies. And it's clear that their design reflects how men tend to view, desire, and dream the perfect feminine beauty.
yeah.
And this is a sort of sexualization of
Hmm.
virtual influencer that reinforce the typical stereotypes about the role of women in our society. But on the other hand, there are some cases of virtual influencers that try to disrupt this type of these stereotypes.
Hmm.
I think, for example, two cases. One is Kami.
Mm.
Kami is the first virtual influencer with Down syndrome, created by an international organization that supports individuals with this syndrome. And it's interesting to underline the fact that Kami is guided by a group of women with Down syndrome themselves. And these women uses these virtual influencers as for example, a reference point to share their experiences and raises the awareness about their lives. For example, Kami does several fashion shows and is the first woman with Down syndrome that does fashion shows.
Uh,
Another example is the Sylvia Novak,
mm.
that is a virtual influencer. She is a virtual mortal influencer from spring to autumn 2020, if I remember. She gradually aged and died.
Mm.
And it's interesting the fact that Sylvia Novak is an example of virtual influencer that tries to create an awareness about our mortality and our aging, starting point from being not human being, virtual influencer that is a sort of artificial creation. In other words, many virtual influencers reinforce
Mm.
social stereotypes with an important radical sexualization of traits, of feminine traits. But on the other hand, um, try to disrupt with innovative forms of virtual people.
That's super interesting, and it's actually changing the way we perceive identity. No, what is the role of humans in building narratives? What is the role of humans in building values? So, how these virtual influencers are actually changing, no, the concept of identity, who we are, what we are looking for, who we relate with, how they are changing identity, and also the self-expression online.
But allora, in my opinion, it's important to underline this. Since we have been in online worlds, we have been used to a radical transformation of identity and relationship with other human beings. So
Yeah.
we are the first human beings to create a relationship with each other through screens. Therefore, without seeing and touching each other's bodies. In other words, we are already immersed in a post-human narrative that goes beyond biology and material presence of bodies.
Mhm.
Avatar, nickname, and profiles represent a digital virtual prolongation of our physical identity. And for example, we use avatars and nicknames to show a trait, a specific trait of our identity that maybe we usually keep in our private existence. We um, can design a hidden character of our life, and in this situation, virtual people, virtual influencer intensify these. Uh, as I said before, relationship with virtual influencer feed on our ability to imagine, project, and invent. And for this reason, virtual persons embody the several lives and identities we would like or to live and be. And I think that virtual influencer and virtual people in general represent a modern way to build a humanity that tries to extend itself beyond the body, the skin, the physical boundaries that define us.
Mm.
Every virtual people intercept of a particular characteristic of human beings. And for this reason, our identity changes in a radical way. And for this reason, virtual influencer is very important to study in relationship with our multi identity.
And that's interesting because they are actually probably the future also of the websites. If you consider that some of the web is also moving towards the spatial web. I'm working, as you know, with virtual reality. When you are inside of a virtual space, in that side, there is no reason to visit a web space. But what about meeting another human? And that other human can be potentially virtual. No, it can guide you, can potentially become your relationship with the digital knowledge. Um, a lot of interesting opportunities, but of course, we should also talk about the dark side of the energy and what can go wrong. So, what are the ethical concerns with that? Any also real case of people that had somehow some toxic relationship with virtual humans?
Yes, I think um, there are some ethical risks about our relationship with virtual influencer. First of all, from the political and cultural point of view. uh, it's clear to think a specific case, an Italian specific case. I think the specific case of Francesca Giubelli, an Italian virtual influencer. She is a beautiful and sexy young girl that wants to spread the so-called made in Italy on online platforms. But she has decided to run for mayor of Rome
Exactly.
in the 2026
Yeah, the next
elections.
one. Yeah.
And we can understand the problematic effects of this decision. There is a sort of digital artificial mannequin that is manipulated by a cunning
Mm.
digital experts that can influence our emotion and our thoughts without we know who is hiding behind Francesca Giubelli. And this is important negative case. I remember, for example, the famous episode of Black Mirror titled "Vote Waldo," that
Ah,
tells us this particular circumstance because this episode images a situation where a sort of virtual creature goes into politics and uses his ability to communicate in order to subvert the ethical roles in politics. Another problems derives from the typical characteristic of human beings. We are human beings that create a sort of dependence,
addiction. Yeah, yeah,
psychological
yeah.
dependence from all this particular situation online, and virtual influencer uh, being being ability cunning influencers to create an important communication with human beings can influence in negative way our presence in the online world and create a situation in where we develop negative dependence.
And especially today in the age of
Yes,
deepfakes, conversational AI, when artificial intelligence can be fine-tuned, also to manipulate and persuade, people to do things or to think about things in a very subtle way. So yeah, whenever we see a face, actually we start engaging with that face in a primordial empathetic way, and a virtual human really triggers this basic instincts of empathy, and for good and for bad. So Davide, I think that unfortunately we ran out of time. We are at the end of our pill, not pillow but pill, and we could really talk for a lot of time. These are topics that all our audience, our attendees, can explore more in your books. I definitely invite all of you, the attendees, also to follow you on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Um, I also want to remember to all of our participants, just a second here, that you can subscribe to our newsletter to have more news, to stay updated about our next initiatives. You know that the entire RBS alumni team is constantly cooking something for you and preparing some new interesting initiatives. Davide, thanks so much again for being here, for making a little bit of time for our community of alumni.
thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Definitely connect with Davide Sisto. Thanks again, and see you very soon the next time with the new interview. Thanks again.